I never thought the words that would shatter me completely wouldn't come from a battlefield, but from my own mother on Christmas night. After a decade of service, after giving everything I had, I was told I was a burden and thrown out of my own home. My name is Christa. At 32 years old, I found myself homeless on Christmas. I'd served 10 years in the army, sending almost every paycheck back to my family. When I returned, injured, I truly believed they'd welcome me with open arms. Instead, my mother looked me dead in the eyes over Christmas dinner and said words that cut deeper than any piece of shrapnel ever could. "You're a burden, get out of this house." With nowhere else to go, I took a late-night bus to my grandmother's farm, my last hope. And when she opened that door, the 5 words she spoke shattered what little was left of my heart. Growing up, my mother Diane's love wasn't a gift, it was a transaction. It was always, "I bought you these shoes, so you better get straight A's." Or, "After all I do for you, the least you could do is clean the entire house." I was constantly walking on eggshells. My father left when I was 5. All I have are these vague, fading memories of a tall man with a kind smile who read me bedtime stories. After he was gone, my mother would often tell me with pure disdain, "You have his stubborn chin," always thinking you know better. The one real, consistent love in my childhood came from my grandmother, Eleanor. Her farm was my sanctuary. During summer breaks, I'd spend weeks there in rural Pennsylvania, helping with the chickens, learning to bake, sitting on the porch swing while she told me stories. "You know, Christa," she'd say as we shelled peas, "you have a spirit that cannot be broken. Remember that when the world feels heavy." I clung to those words. My siblings learned to play my mother's game. Tyler, my younger brother, became a perfect chameleon, becoming whatever would please her. Vanessa, the youngest, mastered flattery. "Mom, you look like you could be my sister," she'd say, and Diane would just beam. Meanwhile, I was always the difficult one, the stubborn one, the one who asked too many questions. By 18, I had to escape. The military was my way out, a purpose, and a way to finally earn my mother's approval. The day I told her I enlisted, I saw something new in her eyes, respect. "The military will be good for you," she said. "Teach you some discipline." What she didn't say, but made clear soon after, was that my enlistment was also a financial opportunity. As I was leaving, she mentioned money was tight. The house needed a new roof. I made my first promise to send money home right from the recruitment office. It felt like the right thing to do. Family supports family, right? Basic training was brutal, but for the first time, the rules made sense. I thrived. On my first deployment, I set up an automatic trance for $500 home every month. It was a huge chunk of my pay, but when I called, my mother actually sounded happy. "Everyone at church is so proud," she told me. "I show them your photos, my daughter serving her country." Those words, they got me through so many long, lonely nights. I'd finally done something right, but over the years, the requests for money grew. The roof became a bathroom remodel, then Vanessa needed a car, then Tyler lost his job. Each time, I sent more, taking extra shifts and dangerous assignments for the hazard pay. When I visited home on leave, the warmth from our calls was never there in person. Mom always had a list of repairs for me to do, but there were moments, a birthday cake with my favorite frosting, a quick hug, and I'd cling to them. Proof that if I just tried harder, gave more, she'd finally love me the way I needed. My grandmother saw it. "Christa, love should not be this hard." She'd tell me in her orchard, "You cannot buy someone's affection, and if you could, it wouldn't be worth having." But I wasn't ready to listen. The pattern was set. I would serve, I would send money, and someday it would be enough. My final deployment was a routine peacekeeping mission. We were escorting aid trucks into a small village. I remember joking with Santos, a new guy in our unit. "Keep your eyes open, but your finger off the trigger." I told him, "These are just families trying to get food." The explosion was instant, a flash of light, a deafening roar, and then I was flying through the air. I couldn't feel my legs. Santos was killed instantly. 3 others were seriously injured. My military career was over. The shrapnel tore through my leg and back. shattering bones and damaging nerves. The next 3 months were a blur of surgeries and learning to walk again with a cane and a brace. The physical pain was a constant fire, but the emotional pain, losing Santos, losing my career, that was worse. But during my recovery, my mother called more than ever before. Her voice was nurturing. "We're getting your old room ready," she said. "The church group is organizing meals for our wounded warrior." It was disorienting, but I let myself hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe my injury would finally prove I deserved her love. I dreamed of a real homecoming, of family dinners where I was welcomed, of finally belonging. I planned to return home just before Christmas. "It will be perfect," my mother said. "The whole family will be together, a real celebration." The journey was agony, medical transport, then navigating crowded holiday airports alone. Every step sending shooting pain through my leg. But I pushed through, fueled by hope. As the plane descended into Pittsburgh, I looked out at the snow-covered landscape. After a decade in deserts and foreign bases, this felt like belonging. I was coming home. Then I turned on my phone. No messages, no missed calls. I brushed it off and called her. "I've landed." I said, "Oh, that's today." She replied, her voice flat. "Well, we're busy with Christmas. Can you get a cab?" The cab cost me $80. As we pulled up to my childhood home, I saw the elaborate Christmas display ring, your inflatable Santas, lights on every window. No one came out to help me as I struggled up the icy walkway with my duffel bag and cane. By the time I reached the door, I was soaked in sweat and my leg was screaming. I hesitated, then the door swung open. My mother stood there, annoyed. "Were you just going to stand there all day? You're letting all the heat out." And in that moment, I knew. Nothing had changed. The house smelled of pine and cinnamon. A massive Christmas tree dominated the living room. "You can put your things in your old room," she said, already turning away. "We converted it to a home office, but Tyler set up an air mattress for you." Before I could process that, my sister Vanessa came out. "Christa, you made it." She hesitated, looking at my cane. "Can I hug you? I don't want to hurt you." "A hug would be nice," I said, and it was. A brief, warm comfort in the chilling atmosphere. "Vanessa, the pie needs checking." My mother called from the kitchen, and just like that, my sister was gone. I went upstairs. My old room was gone, completely. A desk, filing cabinets, and in the corner, a half-inflated air mattress with a thin blanket. No trace I had ever lived here. I sat on the mattress, and it sank to the floor. 10 years of service, thousands of dollars. And this was my welcome. That evening, the house filled with extended family. The gathering was loud and festive. I sat quietly in a corner, the pain making it hard to engage. I was practically invisible. My Aunt Susan finally came over. "So you got hurt over there, huh?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "An explosion. Well, at least you're home now." She cut me off brightly. "I'm sure the military set you up with good benefits." Then my mother called everyone to dinner. The table was a masterpiece, fine china, crystal, a perfect golden turkey. "Christa, you can sit at the end next to the wall," my mother instructed. "That way your equipment won't be in the way." She meant my cane. I had to sit sideways, my injured leg jammed against the wall. The prayer made no mention of my service or sacrifice. As the food was passed, the conversation was all about my cousin's promotions and big commissions. "Always knew you two had the family ambition." My mother beamed at them. The implication was clear, unlike me. Every time I tried to speak, I was talked over. My mother expertly orchestrated it, directing attention away from me. The breaking point was dessert. Christmas pudding, served on our family's antique heirloom plates. As my mother handed me mine, her expression said I should feel honored. But as I shifted, a spasm of pain ripped through my leg. My hand jerked, the plate slipped and shattered on the floor. Silence. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, reaching for my cane to clean it up. My mother's face was pure fury. "Do you have any idea what you just did? That plate survived 2 world wars. It was an accident," I pleaded. "My leg, your pain, your service," she spat. "That's all we've heard about for months. Do you think you're the only person with problems? While you were playing soldier, I was here dealing with real life." I stared, shocked. Playing soldier, Mom, I nearly died. I sent you thousands of dollars, money that barely covered what it costs to maintain this house, to keep up appearances, and now you come back expecting us to wait on you hand and foot, to rearrange our lives around your disability. I never expected that. I said, my voice trembling. I just thought, that we'd be your nursemaids. She stood, looking down at me with utter contempt. Look at you. You can barely feed yourself. You're a burden, Christa. A burden I never asked for. The words destroyed me. Everything I had built over 10 years crumbled to dust. If that's how you feel, I said, struggling to my feet, then I'll go. Best idea you've had since you got here. She replied coldly, get out of this house. Go find somewhere your brokenness won't rue in everyone else's holiday. No one said a word, not Tyler, not Vanessa, no one. They all sat there, eyes averted, as I limped upstairs to get my bag. When I came back down, the broken plate was gone, and everyone was eating dessert again. No one looked up as I walked out the front door into the cold Christmas night. The winter air was a slap. It was past 9. I was injured alone, and had nowhere to go. I heard laughter from inside the house. The celebration continued without me. I checked my bank account. Less than $200. A car slowed down. An elderly man named George rolled down his window. You all right there, miss? Actually, I said, my voice cracking, I could use a ride to the bus station. George was an angel. His wife had passed, and driving on Christmas kept him from being alone. He listened to me. He actually listened. He refused my money and even gave me $20 for the bus ticket. Merry Christmas, soldier, he said. The bus was nearly empty. It wouldn't take me all the way to my grandmother's, just to a town 5 miles away. The driver, seeing my condition, found me a ride with a store owner named Harold, who was heading that way. Another stranger showing me more kindness than my own family. We pulled up to the familiar sign, Elinor's Orchard and Farm. Below it, all are welcome here. I prayed it included me. A single light was on in the kitchen. The walk to the porch was agony. I was sweating, gasping, leaning heavily on the doorframe. I knocked, movement inside. The porch light flicked on. The door opened. There was my grandmother, Elinor, older, in her robe. Her expression shifted from surprise to something hard. She held up her hand, stopping me. Your mother called, she said, her voice cold and distant. Go away. I staggered back. This was it, the final, complete rejection. I was utterly broken, tears streaming down my face. And then, in an instant, everything changed. Her expression shattered into alarm. She lunged forward, catching me. Christa, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was a test. I needed to see your face. Your mother called with some story about you having a mental breakdown, becoming violent. I knew it was lies, but I needed to see for myself. The relief was so overwhelming my legs gave out. She helped me inside, onto the sofa. What did she do to you? She demanded. Tell me everything. And I did. I told her everything. She listened, her face growing thunderous, that woman. She whispered, furious. My own daughter. I have never been so ashamed. She got me water and pain medication, then helped me to the guest room, and I saw it. This room was kept for me. Photos of me in uniform on the dresser. A quilt in my favorite colors, my old books. She had kept a home for me all this time. As she helped me into bed, she hummed an old lullaby. Just before I fell asleep, I felt her hand on my forehead. Rest now, she whispered. You're safe, you're home. And for the first time since I'd returned to America, I truly was. The next morning, over breakfast, we talked, really talked. She listened to everything. My service, my sacrifices, the betrayal. Your mother has always been self-centered, she said sadly. I tried to teach her empathy, but some people can't see beyond their own wants. I kept thinking if I just did enough. I admitted. That was never going to happen, Christa. Not because you weren't worthy, but because she isn't capable of giving it. In the days that followed, we uncovered the truth about the money. Elinor had kept track. She'd confronted my mother, who assured her I was fine. The reality, my mother had used my money for luxuries, vacations, keeping up appearances. The roof was never replaced. Vanessa's college was paid for with scholarships. She had been using me. I'm partly to blame, Elinor said. You couldn't have known. I told her, the betrayal cutting even deeper. Elinor took me to her doctor, who created a new recovery plan for me, better physical therapy, better pain management. The community, her church friends, her neighbors, people I'd never met who knew all about me, showed up with meals, shoveled snow for me, offered rides. They treated me with a respect my own family never had. As winter turned to spring, I started helping on the farm in ways I could manage. The physical work and therapy helped. The pain was still there, but I was learning to live with it. More importantly, I was healing emotionally. I was learning that love shouldn't be a transaction, that I was worthy just as I was. I decided to stay, permanently. Are you sure? Elinor asked. This is a quiet life. I'm sure, I said. For the first time, I'm choosing what brings me peace. We adapted the farm together. A ground floor bedroom, handrails. I started using my military benefits to take online courses in agricultural business. My sister Vanessa called in the spring. What happened was wrong, she said. None of us should have stayed silent. But you did, I said. We did, she admitted. It was easier than standing up to her. We decided to try slowly to rebuild. Tyler called once about money. Mom needs you to transfer your disability back pay. No, Tyler, I said calmly. That's not happening. After everything Mom has done for you, he demanded. What has she done for me, Tyler? I asked. His silence was the answer. With Elinor's support, I took legal steps to protect myself and my future. I was building a new life. 1 year later, the farm was thriving. We'd fixed it up, started a small store. My physical recovery had plateaued. The cane was permanent, but I stood taller. I felt lighter. I had started a program for other veterans to find peace on the farm. Then, on an unseasonably warm day in December, a familiar car pulled in, my mother, impeccably dressed, surveying the farm with disdain. Do you want me to send her away? Elinor asked. No. I said, I can handle this. I walked out to meet her. Hello, Mom. Christa, you look healthy. I am. What brings you here? Your disability back pay came through, she said, getting straight to the point. Tyler mentioned you were unreasonable about sharing it. There it was. After a year, she came for money. My disability pay is supporting my life and my future. I said, my voice steady. I won't be sharing it. You're exaggerating what happened, she scoffed. You were emotional. Your injury affected your judgment. The old doubts rose, but a new clarity pushed them down. Mom, I said gently, I don't expect you to understand. I've accepted our relationship will never be what I hoped. But I'm happy here. I have peace, and I've learned I don't need to buy your approval anymore. Your grandmother has poisoned you against me, she accused. No, I said. Grandma has simply loved me unconditionally. Elinor came out then, Diane, she said. If you've come to make amends, stay for tea. If not, it's best you leave. My mother looked between us, saw our resolve, and straightened up. I can see I'm wasting my time, she said coldly. She got in her car and drove away. I felt nothing, no pain, just quiet relief. That evening, Elinor and I sat on the porch. You stand taller now, she said. Not just physically. I feel taller, I agreed, lighter too. As darkness fell, I realized how much I'd changed. The injury that ended one life began a truer one. The rejection that broke me freed me. My grandmother taught me that love should lift you up, not wear you down. That our worth isn't determined by how others treat us, but by the truth we carry inside. I had found my way home. You'd think after a year of healing, the story would be over. That the hard part was done, but healing isn't a straight line. It's a series of choices you make every single day, and the next chapter of my life, it was all about learning how to stand my ground, and more importantly, how to build something that was truly mine. That first spring on the farm was a season of firsts. My first time planting a garden since I was a kid. My first time waking up without the dread of a phone call from my mother. The chronic pain in my leg was my constant companion, but Elinor. She never treated me like I was fragile. She'd hand me a trowel and say, "Weed the raised beds. It'll be easier on your back." She understood I needed to feel useful, not pitied. I enrolled in online courses for agricultural business. Sitting at that computer, my leg propped up, I felt a flicker of the old discipline from my army days. But this time, I was building a future for us, for the farm, not following orders. I redesigned the farm's website, started a social media page sharing pictures of the newborn goats and the apple blossoms. The response was slow at first, then. It wasn't. People from the city started driving out on weekends. They wanted to see the veteran-run farm they'd read about online. That's when the idea hit me. I was sitting on the porch with a veteran I'd met through a support group, Mike. He was struggling with his own transition, the same lost feeling I knew so well. He spent an afternoon just helping me mend a fence. As he was leaving, he said, "I haven't felt this calm in years." I looked at Alina and she just nodded. She already knew. We started the farmstead program. Just a simple one-day thing where veterans could come out, do some light work, share a meal and just breathe, no pressure, no therapy speak, just the quiet rhythm of the land. The first official day, we had 5 guys show up. Seeing them slowly unwind, the tension leaving their shoulders as they fed the chickens or sat silently on the porch. It gave me a purpose I hadn't felt since I wore a uniform. I wasn't just healing myself, I was helping to build a sanctuary for others like me. My sister Vanessa started visiting more often. It was awkward at first. She'd bring her kids and they'd run wild through the orchard, and you could see her wrestling with this guilt. During one visit, she broke down. "I should have said something, Christa, that night. I was just so scared of her. I know. I told her, and I did. I wasn't ready to fully forgive the silence, but I understood the fear. We were rebuilding, brick by brick." Tyler, though, he remained a ghost, a reminder of the family I'd lost. He called once, a few months after my mom's visit. It wasn't a friendly call, it was an ultimatum. "You need to make this right with Mom," he said, his voice cold. "You're tearing this family apart." I took a deep breath, the phone tight in my hand. "Tyler, the family was already broken. I'm just no longer pretending it's not." He hung up, and that was that. It hurt, but the pain was clean. It was the pain of cutting away something diseased so the rest of you can heal. The farm was becoming something new, something more. We built wider, gravel, packed paths so I could get around on my bad days, which also made it easier for older visitors. We built a proper farm stand, and I used my business courses to start selling our apple butter and honey online. We were no longer just surviving, we were thriving. And then, on a perfect, crisp autumn day, another car came down the driveway. My heart sank for a second, expecting my mother's sedan, but it was a beat-up truck. And out stepped a man I never thought I'd see again, Captain Rodriguez, my old CO. She stood there, hands on her hips, a huge grin on her face. "Well, Sergeant Black, I heard you were building an empire." I was speechless. We hugged, a real solid army hug. She'd gotten my letter about the farm program, and had driven 6 hours to see it for herself. We sat on that porch for hours, drinking sweet tea, swapping stories about the guys, about Santos. We cried, we laughed. It was a different kind of family reunion. It was my real family, reminding me where I came from and who I was. Her visit lit a new fire under me. With her encouragement, I reached out to the local VA and made the farmstead program official. We started getting small grants, nothing big, but enough to build a proper fire pit, get some better tools. The program grew from 5 guys to 10, then 20. We weren't a therapy program, we were a brotherhood and sisterhood, a place where you didn't have to explain your pain because everyone else just got it. As the second Christmas approached, I felt a peace I hadn't known was possible. The farm was decked out in simple white lights. Alina and I baked pies for the volunteers. There was no dread, no walking on eggshells, just the quiet, joyful anticipation of a peaceful holiday. On Christmas Eve, we hosted a gathering for all the veterans and their families who had become part of our little community. The farmhouse was bursting with noise and laughter. Kids were running around, the fire pit was roaring, and Mike, the first veteran who'd come out, was playing guitar. I stood by the window, watching it all, my cane leaning against the wall beside me. Eleanor came and stood next to me, slipping her arm through mine. "You built this, Christa," she said softly. "We built this, Grandma." I corrected her, leaning my head on her shoulder. I looked around at the room. This was my family now. Not defined by blood, but by shared scars, by mutual respect, by chosen love. The journey from that cold Christmas night on my mother's porch to this warm, loud, loving room had been long and painful. But every single step, every ounce of pain had led me here. The little girl who just wanted to be enough for her mother was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her own worth, a soldier who had found a new mission, a granddaughter who had finally come home, and this time it was for good. They say the third year is when a new life truly becomes a home. The shiny newness wears off, and you're left with the real, solid work of building a future. For me, that third year on the farm was all about roots. Deep, stubborn roots that no storm could ever shake. But it was also the year I learned that even when you think you've made peace with the past, it can still show up on your doorstep, asking for a cup of sugar. Spring on the farm was no longer a novelty. It was a rhythm I knew in my bones. My legs still ached with the rain, but the cane felt less like a burden and more like a trusted tool. The farmstead program was flourishing. We had a waiting list. Mike, that first veteran, was now my full-time partner in running it. He had a knack for talking to the guys who were too angry or too broken to talk to anyone else. We were a good team. It was Mike who came to me one afternoon, his face unreadable. "There's a woman at the gate," he said. "Says she's your sister-in-law, Tyler's wife." My stomach tightened. Tyler had built a wall of silence so high, I'd assumed it was permanent. Laura stood there, looking small and out of place in her city clothes, holding a casserole dish like a shield. "Tyler doesn't know I'm here," she said quickly, her voice nervous. I heard about what you're doing here. For the veterans, I brought you a lasagna." Eleanor, ever the diplomat, ushered her inside for tea. Over the next hour, the story tumbled out. Tyler was struggling. His business was failing. The pressure from my mother, the constant need to keep up appearances, was crushing him. He'd become someone she barely recognized, dangry, withdrawn. "He talks about you, you know," Laura said, looking at me, not with anger, with regret. "I think he's ashamed he didn't stand up for you." This wasn't the dramatic confrontation I'd braced for. This was a quiet, painful crack in the wall my brother had built. I didn't know what to do with it. After she left, Eleanor looked at me. "You don't owe him anything, Christa, but healing isn't just for you. It can be an offer you make to others if you choose." I thought about it for days. Then I did something simple. I sent Tyler an email, no accusations, no expectations. I just told him about the farm. I sent him a picture of the new litter of piglets. I wrote, "Laura visited. It was good to see her. The door is always open." I didn't ask for a reply. I just put a thread out into the universe and let it go. Summer brought a different kind of challenge. A documentary crew found us, a small, independent team wanting to do a piece on run sustainable farms. My first instinct was to say no, to protect our peace, but Mike looked at me and said, "Sergeant, our mission is outreach. This is outreach." He was right. For a week, they filmed us. They didn't focus on the drama or my injury. They focused on the work, the feel of soil under your nails, the quiet camaraderie of vets working side by side, the peace in Eleanor's eyes as she watched over it all. The day the segment aired online, our website crashed from the traffic. Donations poured in for the farmstead program, offers for partnerships. My inbox was flooded with messages from other veterans, from people who felt alone, from families who said our story gave them hope. It was overwhelming and incredible. We weren't just a quiet little farm anymore. We had become a beacon. It was that spotlight that finally forced the confrontation I had been waiting for, and yet dreading. My mother saw the documentary. She didn't call. She didn't write. She just appeared one Tuesday afternoon, as if summoned by the sheer force of her own resentment. She looked older. The perfectly curated elegance was still there, but it seemed thinner, more fragile. She didn't look at the farm, at the new barn we'd built with the grant money, at the veterans laughing by the vegetable patch. She looked only at me. "So this is your little kingdom," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "It's my home, Mom," I replied, my own voice steady. I felt Mike and Elinor nearby, a silent, supportive presence. "You've made me a villain in your story for the whole world to see," she said, her composure cracking. "After everything I sacrificed for you, I was the one who stayed. I was the one who raised you. And for the first time, I didn't see a monster. I saw a deeply wounded, selfish woman, trapped in her own story." The anger I'd been clinging to for years just dissolved. It was replaced by a profound, aching pity. "Mom," I said, and my voice was gentle, "no one is the villain in their own story. I'm not telling my story to hurt you. I'm telling it because it's mine to tell, and because it might help someone else feel less alone." She stared at me, confused by my calm. She had come ready for a war, and I was offering a truce she didn't know how to accept. "You have a grandson," I said, changing the subject entirely. "Vanessa brought him last week. His name is James." The information hung in the air between us. A fact, a piece of the family story she was no longer a part of. Her face crumpled just for a second, then the mask was back. "I see," she said stiffly. She turned, got back in her car, and drove away. I knew in my bones that it was the last time I would ever see her. It wasn't a victory. It wasn't a reconciliation. It was an ending. A quiet, final closing of a door that had been broken for decades. That night, as the sun set over the orchard, I felt a chapter of my life seal itself shut. The farm was quiet. The work for the day was done. I stood there, leaning on my cane, and looked out at the land that had saved me. It was more than a sanctuary now. It was a legacy. The little girl who had yearned for a love that was always conditional was gone. The soldier who had defined herself by sacrifice was gone. In their place was a farmer, a leader, a granddaughter, a sister, a friend. My life wasn't the one I had planned. It was harder. It was messier. It was filled with scars, both seen and unseen. But it was authentically, completely, and powerfully mine. And I wouldn't have traded a single second of the journey for the world. There's a stillness that comes after the storm has truly passed. It's not just the absence of noise, but the deep, resonant quiet of knowing you've built something that can withstand the weather. By the 5th year, the farm wasn't just my home. It had become part of me, and I, part of it. The scars, on my leg, on my heart, had softened from angry, red lines into silvery maps of a journey I no longer regretted. The farmstead program was now its own living, breathing entity. We didn't just have a waiting list. We had a small campus. We'd converted the old barn into a community center with meeting spaces and a small woodworking shop. Mike had fallen in love with a wonderful woman named Sarah, a therapist who volunteered her time, and their wedding was right there in the apple orchard. I stood as his best woman, my cane decorated with ribbon, my heart so full it felt like it might burst. We were no longer just healing. We were living full, vibrant lives. Vanessa and her family were regular fixtures. Her son, James, called me Auntie Farm. He'd follow me on my rounds, his small hand sometimes resting on mine on the cane for balance, a gesture of such pure, unconscious support it would bring tears to my eyes. She'd finally broken free from my mother's orbit completely, starting her own business and finding a confidence I'd never seen in her before. We were sisters truly for the first time, and then there was Tyler. It was late autumn, the air sharp with the smell of wood smoke and decaying leaves. I was alone on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, when his truck pulled in. He didn't get out immediately. He just sat there, as if gathering courage. When he finally approached, he looked older, wearier, but the defensive hunch in his shoulders was gone. He didn't have a casserole dish. He just had his hands shoved in his pockets. "Laura said you sent an email. A while ago," he started, his voice rough. "About the piglets. I did. I said, not moving from my chair. Would you like to sit down? He sat on the porch step, not next to me, but not facing away either. He stared out at the darkening fields for a long time. I'm sorry, Christa, he finally said. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 1,000 unsaid things. I was a coward. I was so busy trying to earn a love from her that I sacrificed the love I already had from you. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary. It was the sound of a dam breaking after years of pressure. You were surviving, Ty. I said softly. We all were, in different ways. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said, his voice thick. I needed you to know that I see you now. I see what you've built, and I'm so proud of you. He didn't stay long. He didn't come inside, but he hugged me before he left. A real, solid, brotherly hug. It wasn't a magic fix. The lost years were still lost, but a new path, narrow and overgrown, had been cleared between us. It was a start. Life settled into a deep, fulfilling rhythm. Elinor, though as sharp as ever, had slowed down a little. Our roles had gently shifted. I was now the one making sure she was warm enough, that she wasn't overdoing it. We were partners in every sense of the word. The biggest surprise came on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. A letter arrived from a lawyer, not a threatening one. It was from my father's side of the family, my grandfather, the father of the man with the kind smile from my childhood memories, had passed away. He'd left me something in his will. It felt like a message from another life. With Elinor's encouragement, I went. It was a small town estate over, a place I'd never been. The lawyer handed me a small, heavy box. Inside wasn't money. It was my father's things, his dog tags from his brief time in the service, a bundle of letters he'd written to my mother before I was born, and a photograph of him holding me as a baby, looking at me with such unguarded love it stole my breath. There was a note from my grandfather. It said, I lost touch with my son, and then I lost touch with you. I regret that every day. Your father would have been so proud of the woman you became. I sat in that quiet office and cried. Not tears of sadness for what was lost, but tears of a strange, completed circle. I hadn't just built a new family, I had reclaimed a lost piece of my old one. The love had been there all along, just waiting in a box for me to be ready to receive it. I brought the box home and showed Elinor. We went through the letters together, piecing together the story of my parents' young, hopeful love, a love that had existed long before it turned sour. It didn't excuse my mother's behavior, but it helped me understand the depth of her own disappointment in life. Hurt people, but healed people, we have the capacity to understand. Now, as I sit here on this same porch, watching the sunset paint the sky, the farm is quiet. Mike and Sarah are expecting their first child. Tyler and Laura are coming for dinner next Sunday. Vanessa and James will be here too. Elinor is dozing in her rocking chair beside me, a soft smile on her face. The journey from that broken, homeless soldier on Christmas night to this woman, surrounded by a family she built and a legacy she grew from the ground up. It's been long, it's been painful, but every single step was worth it. I learned that home isn't a place you're born into. It's a place you build with your own 2 hands, and you fill it with the people who choose to build it alongside you. My life is a testament to that. It's a mosaic of broken pieces, gathered and arranged into something more beautiful than the original picture ever was. And it is, finally, whole. You know, there comes a point where you stop counting the years of your new life, and you simply start living them. The past becomes less of a wound and more of a reference point, a reminder of how far the light can reach after a long darkness. For me, that shift happened so gradually, I almost didn't notice. The farm, my grandmother, this community. They weren't just my sanctuary anymore. They were my ordinary, beautiful, everyday world. The 7th spring on the farm was marked by the sound of a child's laughter, mixing with the bleating of the new kid goats. Mike and Sarah's daughter, Lily, had arrived, and the farm instantly had a new queen. She learned to walk holding onto my cane, her tiny hand a perfect counterweight to my own. Watching Mike, a man who had once carried the same heavy silence I did, gently feed a newborn lamb while cradling his daughter, It was a kind of healing I hadn't even known was possible. We weren't just surviving our pasts, we were building futures, right here in the rich soil of this land. My brother Tyler's transformation was slower, like a tree stretching back toward the sun after a long winter. He started visiting on Sundays, just him and Laura at first. He was awkward, unsure of his place. He'd fix things. A loose hinge on the barn door, a leaky faucet in the farmhouse. It was how he knew to say, "I care." He couldn't find the words yet, but his hands spoke a language I understood. One afternoon, I found him in the workshop, teaching a young veteran from our program how to use a lathe. The patient, quiet way he had with him. It was a side of my brother I'd never seen. The armor he'd worn for my mother was finally off. Vanessa's business was thriving, and with it, her spirit. She was no longer the little sister seeking approval, but a confident, capable woman. She'd come out for a weekend, her laptop in one hand and a bag of groceries in the other, and we'd stay up late talking not about our mother, but about her dreams, my plans for the farm, our lives. The shadow of our childhood had finally receded, leaving us in the sun. And Eleanor, my fierce, wonderful grandmother, her steps were slower now, her need for an afternoon nap non-negotiable. Our roles had completed their gentle shift. I was the one running the farm, managing the programs, making the big decisions. And she was my most trusted advisor, my historian, my rock. We'd sit for hours on the porch, her small, wrinkled hand in mine, often not needing to say a word. The love between us was a quiet, constant hum, the foundation upon which everything else was built. The letter came on a day like any other. It was from a hospice center 2 towns over. My mother was dying. Ovarian cancer, the letter said. It had been swift. She had given them my name as her next of kin. I sat at the old kitchen table, the paper trembling in my hand. I didn't feel the surge of anger or the gut-wrenching pain I expected. I felt a profound, echoing sadness. Sadness for the woman who had chosen a life of such bitter isolation. Sadness for the love she could never give or receive. Eleanor found me there. She didn't offer advice. She simply asked, "What does your heart tell you to do, Christa?" I thought about it for a long time. I wasn't the broken daughter seeking closure. I was a whole woman, capable of making a choice from a place of strength, not fear. I decided to go not for her, for me. The room was sterile and quiet. She was so small in the bed, the sharp edges of her personality softened by morphine and weakness. Her eyes fluttered open when I entered. "Christa," she whispered, her voice a dry rustle. "I'm here, Mom," I said, pulling a chair close. She didn't apologize. I hadn't expected her to. That wasn't her language. Instead, her gaze drifted to the window, to the sunlight outside. "Your father," she began, her words slow and difficult. "He loved you so much it frightened me how much he loved you." It was the closest I would ever get to an explanation, a confession of her own inadequacy, her own fear of being eclipsed. I took her hand. It was cold and light as a bird's bone. "It's okay," I said. And for the first time, I truly meant it. There was no debt left to pay, no score to settle. There was just a dying woman and a daughter who had learned how to love without conditions. She died 2 days later. I handled the arrangements. It was a small, quiet service. Tyler, Vanessa, and I stood together at the graveside, not as the fractured siblings she had created, but as the united front we had chosen to become. We were her legacy, not of her bitterness, but of our own resilience. Afterwards, we all came back to the farm. The table was crowded with food brought by neighbors and veterans. The house was filled with the noise of life, Lily babbling, Mike laughing, the clatter of plates. It was the antithesis of her cold, perfect Christmases. It was messy and loud and full of genuine love. That evening, as everyone settled, I walked out to the orchard alone. I leaned on my cane and breathed in the scent of apple blossoms. I thought about the long, winding road that had led me here, from the battlefield to my mother's table, from that cold bus station to this warm, thriving land. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt at peace. The final thread tying me to that old pain had been gently cut. My story was no longer about overcoming my mother. It was about honoring my grandmother. It was about leading this community. It was about being Auntie Farm and Mike's best friend and Tyler's sister and the keeper of this sacred ground. The past was finally, completely at rest, and my future was blooming all around me, in every branch, in every laugh, in every quiet moment of grace. The journey was over, the life was just beginning. You know, if you had told me, on that freezing Christmas night, clutching my duffel bag for dear life, that this was where I'd end up, I never would have believed you. I was so focused on the family I'd lost, I couldn't even imagine the family I was about to find. This farm, this land, my grandmother. They didn't just give me a roof, they gave me a mirror, and in that mirror I slowly learned to see myself not as broken or a burden, but as whole. As worthy of love, not for what I could give, but simply for who I am. My story started with a shattering. A plate, my heart, the illusion of a family that never really existed. But here's the secret I learned in the mending. The broken places aren't just weak spots. When you fill them with compassion, with purpose, with the love of people who truly see you, they become the strongest parts of you. They become the seams that hold your new life together, a life that is sturdier and more beautiful than the first one ever was. I look out now and I don't see what was taken from me. I see what was given. I see Mike's family growing. I see my brother finding his way back. I see my sister shining with a light that is all her own. I see the legacy of a fierce old woman in every apple blossom, and in the quiet courage of every veteran who finds a moment of peace under this wide, open sky. The little girl who just wanted to be enough. She's still here, but now she's the one who gets to be the sanctuary for others. She's the one who gets to say, "You are safe here. You are home." My journey wasn't about getting revenge or even about getting an apology. It was about getting me back, and in finding myself, I found a world so much bigger and brighter than the one I'd left behind. So, if you take anything from my story, let it be this: your worth is not negotiable. Your family is who loves you, not who shares your blood, and your ending, it's never truly an ending. It's just the soil from which your new beginning grows. This is Christa Black from Eliner's Orchard and Farm, signing off for now. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. Remember to tend your own garden, no matter how rocky the soil may seem, because what grows from it can be absolutely breathtaking.